All right, so Ernest, let's talk about Investment Ready and the program that we have coming up in 2024. Why is this program so important to entrepreneurs?
Sure. As we've spoken about, Dominique, it's very, very important for entrepreneurs to be ready to go for capital because you're investing a huge amount of time and money and effort in launching your business. And like anything else in life, if you're not prepared, you won't be successful. And that's particularly the case with investment readiness and going to investors. It's very, very important for us to have all the steps and information prepared so that when you get to that point, you're ready. And what that involves really is doing a three stages: a personal feasibility, which briefly is just assessing your ability as an individual to be an entrepreneur. Do you have the time? Do you have the money? What's your family structure? Can you afford to do this? Because unlike a job, you're not going to get a check every Friday. You're going to have to cultivate a business. So that's number one. Number two is the business feasibility, which has many different aspects, as we know. And number three is taking all that information and packaging it in an investment grade fashion to be able to present to investors. And once all that's done, that's of course a very oversimplified viewpoint of what that feasibility and investment readiness is. But we're launching a very detailed, comprehensive course to take entrepreneurs through that whole process from A to Z to be able to become investor ready.
So we're walking them from the very beginning, answering all of their questions, breaking everything down, making it very simple, but very understandable, right? So that when they do apply for funding, it leads to a more successful outcome. Because what have we seen when people are not investment ready?
So the biggest thing today is the competition for capital. So there is a lot of capital, institutionally especially, there's a lot of capital available for projects, for companies. However, that's kind of an illusion from the standpoint of new entrepreneurs, because a lot of that capital that's available goes to more mature companies. And we'll get into the different stages at some point in time as we do in the course. But when you're a new entrepreneur in a conceptual stage, or what we call a pre-seed stage, where you're developing your minimum viable product or your actual product or service that you're going to bring to market, you don't have, for the most part, have revenues. And so in doing that, the competition to get that capital is fierce at that particular stage. And the only people that are going to be successful in accessing and even getting the attention of institutional capital at that point are those that really have a polished, I say a polished presentation, but a polished package to go to investors, which tells them the story from A to Z, and really incorporates what we just talked about earlier, which is that not only the personal, but also the business feasibility, so that an investor has all that laid out. They've got the hot buttons that show their interest, but they also have all the things that make an investor confident to be able to make an investment, which is that the entrepreneur or founder or team has put together all the facts, figures about the business, the market, who they're going to sell to, the many factors, so that the investor has confidence that if the entrepreneur has done his or her homework, and in doing that they're also going to be that diligent about executing the model. Because if you're sloppy in your preparation, are you going to be polished in your execution of that? And the answer is probably not. If you make a good impression, it's the same as a great example. If you're practicing for a big game or a track meet and you're sloppy in your practice, maybe you show up for practice once or twice a week, Are you going to be able to run a good race or play a good game? Versus someone who's there 6 days a week, practicing. They're going to be ready for the game. And this is no different. All that practicing and homework is going to prepare you that for that investment. And to answer your question more succinctly, because of that competition for capital, if you're fortunate to bring someone to the table that has an interest in what you do, it's so valuable. It's a goose that's laying a golden egg, and you have that opportunity. And if you're not prepared, they'll walk away, and you'll have lost a tremendous opportunity that you've worked very hard to get, because it's not you just submit materials and everybody is interested. As I said, it's very competitive. And a great example of that is, you submit a summary or a deck to a fund, and they say, this is great. I'd like to see more. I want to see, a full-scale business plan, your pro forma. And you don't have that. You can't just say, oh, I'll be back to you in 3 weeks with that. It doesn't work that way. They're off to something else. They've forgotten about you. So it's important to have everything done, completed in a professional investment grade manner, so that when that opportunity does come, that you can take advantage of it.
I think it's really important that you pointed out about being polished. As entrepreneurs, we can get lost in our love for our project. And so we just get very, one-sided. But it's a good point, because in the deck, there are things that we're talking about with the market, projections, numbers, right? And I've come across decks that are just pictures and very vague. These are details that maybe to us or to the entrepreneur, it may seem like we're giving more information, but it's really not. You have to think about it from the viewpoint of the person that's actually looking at your project, right?
100%. You bring up an excellent point. And the old adage in entrepreneurship is never fall in love with your baby. And we've all been there. We've all done it. It's hard not to. It's that fine line between being completely passionate about what you do, which is, you have to have that, right? To interest an investor, you got to show them that this is your passion, and completely falling in love with it to the point where you can't see beyond that. We have to have that degree of objectivity as entrepreneurs. There reaches a point where you have to go and ask yourself the tough questions. Why aren't the people investing in this? If I've been on the street with my company and my deck, and I've been pitching people for 6 months and I don't have any interest, people are turning me down. Well, why are they turning me down? And am I going to continue to do the same thing over and over again, and expect a different result? And of course, that's the definition of insanity, right? Where you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Yeah.
So it's that degree of objectivity is so important to have. And it's very difficult, because we all tend to fall in love, but have a passion for, what we're doing. And sometimes it makes it difficult to see the objections, or to even accept the objections.
Yeah.
People tell you. And oftentimes investors or friends that you go to, they won't tell you. They'll just turn the deal down or give you an excuse. And you don't know it's an excuse, so you don't know the real reason why they're turning it down. So that's important too, because at the end of the day, if that information is enormously valuable, right? It's just as valuable, you could say, in gaining your full funding, to know what you're doing wrong in the beginning. Definitely. As it is to get a check, because at the end, because if someone invests a small amount of money and you're still doing, things wrong, you may never fill your whole offering and get all your money. But if you can clearly identify why you're not interesting the bulk of the investors and solve those issues, answer those questions before they arise, then you have a much better chance of being successful.
We can tackle it. And then if we have women founders that are coming and interested in the program that have already pitched and they don't know why their projects have been declined, can they submit to the investment ready program and maybe get some of those questions answered ahead of time too? Is that something that they could toss around?
100%. Look, I've been doing this 30 plus years. We still learn every day, but I can say, coming out of school, the first few business plans that I wrote, were they perfect? No. Is the pitch perfect? No. There's always things that are left out. And going back to my sporting analogy too, or anything you do, whether it's painting, singing, golfing, tennis, to have a mentor, if you have not done this before, you're not having success, is enormously important to your success and your time frame too, because you can't possibly get everything right as a new entrepreneur. You can Google things till the cows come home, and you're never going to find all the answers, the tricks, the tips, the little nuggets of gold that you've learned on the street from doing this over and over again for years and years. So those things are all valuable. And what I've tried to do in the course is to give our female entrepreneurs a benefit of those 3 decades worth of knowledge in doing this, so that you can circumvent a lot of the mistakes that I made and most others make along the path. It's the learning curve, and we all go through it. But if you have a mentor that can tell you, that you're slicing the ball because you're hitting it wrong every time, you could be hitting it wrong, till for the next 30 years and not really realize that, unless you have a mentor to instruct you of how to change that. And that's what we're here for, is we're here to polish up and make your presentation and your investment readiness process, to give you the information you need, and to also help you to get through that process, so that when you're done, you are ready to tackle pitching capital sources. And we're there to help you with that as well. But we're stressing now the whole importance of the investment readiness in getting there.
And I want to ask, like, you've been in this space you have so much experience and for a while. And we all know women receive less than 2% of venture capital, right? Especially minority women. I think they're at 0.13%, So now with this program, women coming into this program, what is going to be the benefit, right? Because there's many programs out there, right? What is different about this program that we're giving to our founders who enter?
First and foremost, I think it goes back to what we just spoke about, which is investment readiness. As you know, because you and I are both involved in looking at dozens of DACs and reviewing different projects all the time. People in general, whether they're women, men, minority women, minority men, they have the same issues, right? Most of them are not paired, or their materials are not investment grade, and they're not as polished as they could be to go to investment capital. So first and foremost, for our clients, the underprivileged, underrepresented women, is to give them that particular foundation. I'd also like to say, I think that since we have combined efforts, we bring a great synergy to the table, because we represent a diversity in not only color, we represent in age, in gender. And so we complement each other on those particular aspects. And a lot of our young women coming into the program, you've been in their shoes. I've been in their shoes from a standpoint of just plain entrepreneurship, but you've been in their shoes as a woman coming up the ranks, and all the setbacks and obstacles that you've come across as a woman entrepreneur. So I think we add that synergy there as well, that experience that we can give to them. And then the third thing is, the tide is kind of changing now. It's not a big wave, but it's a small wave that hopefully will be a big wave. And that is that there are micro funds out there now that are looking at women, people of color, LGBTQ, minority groups that have not gotten the attention of capital. Is it still where we want it to be? No, of course not. But it's starting to get there. So what we're saying is, if you're a young woman that has a great idea, wants to launch a business, or has launched a business, wants to take it to the next step, we'll get you to a point where you're above your competition. You're ready, you're polished, you have an investment grade presentation with no holes in it that you can present, whether it's to high net worth investors, private angel investors, or to institutions, to venture capitalists or small private equity, that you have something that you can feel proud and confident of in going in there, that doesn't have any gaps in it. And having all the follow-on due diligence that they're going to ask for if they do have an interest. And so that's what we can provide, and putting you that much further ahead of the competition that's in your space.
Right. And it is so much important. And to have that backing is crucial, right? Especially as a woman, because, if we can come in with some force behind us as well, then that's just the icing on the cake. But also with the investment ready preparation, I know from a personal standpoint how crucial it is to have someone taking a second look, right? Especially a mentor, someone with more experience. It is absolutely crucial. The knowledge that you gain, especially learning from the mistakes that you've done. I mean, I have learned so much from what I have turned in, what I've submitted, and being able to bounce those ideas off of and being able to collaborate with a mentor is just so crucial. And this community, this program is very, very, very much needed. And so I just have to ask, you decided to come in and collaborate with us on this project. What is it about like female founders that gets you excited, for next year too?
Well, I think for me, look, one of my passions after all this time is our entrepreneurs, and that's number one. And my passion for that is that I see so many great ideas, great products and services that are not getting funded. And I'm going to get to the female part of it in a second, and it bothers me. It bothers me from the standpoint of the fact that I know, and as entrepreneurs, what these people have put into it. Many of them put their time, their effort, their money, all into their projects, and they may not be perfect, which is why we're here, right? And they can't raise the money, and a lot of the projects just they'll disappear, and that bothers me from the standpoint of it's a missed opportunity, and that goes 20, 50 times greater for women, because the women aren't even getting, the door opened, let's say the fund, to look at the materials, first of all, in a lot of them. So, our game plan here is
ask why you think that is.
Well, it's historical, right? I mean, first of all, I look at my parents' generation. Women were never in business in my parents' generation. They were homemakers, and the men were the breadwinners. And the transition out of that phase historically for women not to be just the homemakers, but to be, have a career and fund a business. I think the whole mentality in this transitional phase is, deep within the psyche, and even with women that manage funds, this is found that a lot of them lack confidence in women entrepreneurs, which is kind of bizarre because that's why they've launched a fund. But
interesting.
that psyche that, women aren't as qualified to run a business. I mean, you've been a homemaker, which obviously a lot of women that launch their business are not homemakers. They've come out of school with a great degree, or they have a great idea, or they have a technology, and they're just on the same, level playing field as any guy. But that's that ingrained psyche that maybe they're not as competent, or as driven, as a man, I think lurks somewhere, deep in the psyche. My theory. It is what it is. Forgetting the theory, the facts are the facts, right? That women get, as you said, less than 2% of the venture capital. And again, going back to the, institutional capital, by 95-98% of it is controlled by older, middle-aged men, myself. And so we've got to, rather than hitting our head against the wall for women entrepreneurs, let's find a way to get to that end point. Let's not try to destroy all the barricades, because that'll be, maybe not your lifetime that all gets ironed out to complete and utter equality. We want that, but the reality of it is it's not there yet. So let's bridge that gap to being the female entrepreneur, and how do you get to the capital that you need? Maybe it involves incorporating men as an advisory team or a mentor. It doesn't have to be, someone in your company, but there's a way around that. And part of what we're bringing to the table is just that. And our plan is, apart from our course, is to provide incubation services to our entrepreneurs as well. So when you go through our course, our next step after launching our course is to develop an incubator that we can take the top women that go through our course and enter our pitch event, and that we can then pull them into our incubator to provide not only some of the funding, resources to more funding, and also that mentorship, as you mentioned, to be able to, review documents, make introductions, be there to bounce things off. Why am I not? What am I doing wrong in my pitch event? Why aren't the investors interested? What are am I missing? Am I missing the hot buttons on my project? Because that's another thing that people do too. That our attention span with social media has gone, from this to this now. And as you and I have talked about, even in YouTube, Instagram, everything's gotten shorter, right? Because people's, have gone from full-length videos down to reels and shorts, because people don't have the bandwidth to sit there and watch something. And it's the same with investment. People have gone, I remember back, 20 years ago, I used to send a cassette. You made a cassette video that was like an hour that you'd send somebody. And it was long and drawn out.
VHS. We're talking about
VHS,
VHS.
and then it was it was a DVD, and then PowerPoint came along, and that was revolutionary in the pitching scenario. But the bottom line is, you have to be cognizant of that window of attention span opportunity. And when you lead in on any of your materials, like that introductory phase, you better be impactful. I want to come away from what you tell me your business is with, wow, what do I need to learn more about this. And if I can't come away with that in the first, 3 sentences to a small paragraph, you've lost me. And I'm not saying me rhetorically, but the investor, right?
Right.
That's
And but
important.
see, when you mention that, there's so many components to it, right? So you have to stand out, right? Make your business stand out. But then also, if you do speak to an investor that likes your presentation or your pitch, then back to what you said, are you prepared? Do you have everything set up, ready to hand over when he says, okay, you blew me away. Now I'm ready to see, what do you have next? And rather than some of the companies that we've seen in the past who were not ready and missed that opportunity, we want everybody coming through the program to be like, yes, I'm ready. Here's what I have.
100%.
And with when they get to the incubator, let's talk about the incubator a little bit. This is mentorship, inclusive of mentorship, advising, education as well, with the possibility of getting funded.
Correct. Yeah, so in the incubator, some of there's value on a number of different levels with the incubator. Number one is most incubators now, when you go in there, they have an application and a questionnaire, and you get accepted in. But you don't really, you haven't given them your business plan, your pro forma, and all that. It's basically they have their standard questionnaire, and they admit you to the program. Which again, those are very, very competitive as well. And generally speaking, you get a smaller investment. It may be, $100,000, $125,000 for a small piece of equity, 5 or 6%. But what it affords you is it's literally that first domino that falls, or your lead investor. So when an incubator gets involved with your company, then you've got your lead investor. So what that does is two things. It gives you leverage to be able to say that to other people that you're pitching. But they're not going to, an incubator doesn't want to leave their capital at risk also. If they like you and your project, and they've invested a small amount of money and time, as an incubator is time and resources too. It's not just the capital. Then they want to see you be successful. So they're going to open that door of resources, which in our case and other incubators have an array of capital sources that they can pick up the phone and call, that you as an entrepreneur wouldn't be able to get in touch with somebody. So it's the same as, people go to the Shark Tank and they give them huge amounts of equity, and those people, in a normal scenario, I would say that's an insanity. But for those people, those sharks, they can pick up the phone in one call and save you months, years worth of groundwork, because someone will pick up their call. And an incubator is the same way. You can pick up the phone, call a fund, say, look, I've got a great company I'd like you to take a look at. Okay. I know you, I have a, relationship with you. If you tell me that this is good, I'll look at it. Whereas the entrepreneur, he's going to send in an email, through a portal, and he's just going to be a number.
Yep.
So that's the value is not only that small amount of money, the mentoring, but also the resource of being able to open those doors.
That access is so crucial,
Right.
because we're shut out of that access, have historically been shut out of that access. And you're right. I mean, you can be just another email, and you got to think they're probably getting hundreds of emails. So a day. And so being able to be surrounded and enter a program like this where you have access is so crucial. Absolutely. And so what kind of, can any industry apply into the cohort, into this program? Could it be women in the beauty industry, women in agriculture? Anybody can apply and enter.
Yes, because this is foundational. And so, it's completely agnostic. There are no limitations to products or services. Even people that are starting non-for-profits, they may not be, they're not selling equity in their company. They're doing philanthropic investment into their company, but it's the same thing, right? You're still telling a story. You're still, whether you're pitching someone to make an investment for equity or for a philanthropic reason, you still have to light their fire, right? You still have to get them excited about what you're doing and how you're going to execute it, and what the result's going to be from all this work and money and execution. So yes, so it would apply to any industry, and even non-for-profits.
That's good. Great. Because I know we have some non-for-profits that are going to want to get involved in this program as well.
Absolutely.
And so do you believe, I want to ask you about, the impact Right. So if we can, and this part maybe we could take out later, but I want to ask you also about the impact. The impact of if we can get 2 to 3, where do you see this going 2025, 2026? You know, the impact of having witnesses who complete the program, the amount of income that can be regenerated back into the economy, the amount of, you know, inspiration for ownership and wealth that can be created in community. That's where I kind of see this going as well, right? Uplifting female minority entrepreneurs while also at the same time uplifting our small business community and the economy as a whole. Where do you kind of see 2025, you know, just where our impact, what we can have with the program?
Sure. So, one of the trends that I see that's happened, certainly with the millennial generation too, and in corporate America, is that there's really no corporate loyalty on either side. There's no corporate or employee loyalty as there was, say 40, 50 years ago when, people in my parents' generation, the whole scenario of starting in the mailroom and working your way up to a vice president and getting your gold watch in retirement. That's long gone. Those days are gone. And corporations now in the competitive environment, they're trying to cut expenses left and right. From travel and perks and everything else. And quite frankly, the employees are in a similar mindset in terms of there's not a lot of loyalty either. If they are not happy in the work environment, my generation would, you would either go out and look for another job, or you kind of bite your tongue and bear down, and you had a job and you had income and you'd go about your way. But it's not like that anymore. So that if they're not happy, a lot of the generation now is leaving companies and going somewhere else, whether they have a job immediately or not. So that dynamic where there's no loyalty really on either side kind of creates this, uneasiness in joining kind of corporate America, right? Because there is that dynamic going on, and that's also fueled more entrepreneurship in the younger generations, which is nice. So people getting out of school today, which rarely happened when I went to college, but you have college grads and people that haven't gone to college that are ready to start a company.
Mm-hmm.
And it could
Or
be
have
something
already
that's,
started.
or have already started a company. It could be something, that's completely brick and mortar. It could be, a landscaping company. It could be, a sandwich shop. It could be a bistro, a coffee shop, personal training services. So, there's an array of things it could be. It doesn't have to be, something that's high technology, right? And what we've seen, and I'm going to kind of get off on a path, but we've seen also in the investment community, it's become very sort of one-dimensional here in respect of a lot of the institutional capital is focused on technology. You see, AI is very extremely hot these days, but technology, and if you don't have technology, that you're a more advanced company looking for expansion. In other words, you have products in the marketplace, you have sales, you're reasonably successful in bottom line, and you're looking to expand the business. Well, that doesn't suit the entrepreneur very well that wants to start a brick and mortar business or a young company. So it becomes even more important that we provide them with the resources and the advice on how to do that, right? So that you can then gain capital. There's a strategy to being able to do those companies, those businesses that may not be ready for the fund. They may not be ready for a VC, a private equity fund, a family office at this point in time. Maybe they're smaller, but raising capital too and becoming investment ready there's a strategic component to it that's overlooked, and that is you know, a lot of the psychology, and first of all, knowing your investor and knowing the psychology of that investor, what they're looking for, and what's going to trigger them to be able to, you know, to want to invest in your business. So those are all very important, and that's, again, that mentorship can help with that particular aspect of it too.
And you find being able to be around trusted people, trusted advisors. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of negative information out there, a lot of bad terms, a lot of signing bad checks, maybe giving up too much equity. So you want to join programs like this so that you can discuss these things. We can talk about offers that they get as well, just to make sure that they're not accepting anything that might put them in a worse position, right?
Right. And you bring up an excellent point, but I've seen that, again, I'll refer to the Shark Tank, but that example kind of goes out the window because they're gonna propel them to be in another domain. But you know, the staircase of raising investment capital is such that you have to be strategic and careful at the early stages, as you were intimating, that you don't give too much of your company away. You know, if it reaches a point, you know, where you own as the founder or the team has less than 50%. I mean, a big company, yes, you can control the company with less than that. But theoretically, if it's you and me and you own 51%, and you decide tomorrow that you want to sell the company, or there's different things that you want to do, or just raise more capital, then you're on the outside looking in. Or say they just want to get rid of you. You know, the majority ownership can come in and do that. You could be on the outside looking in. So as a young
I think
entrepreneur,
that just happened that happens all the time. I think
it
it
happens
happens
all the time. The
Uber.
companies come in,
Yeah.
and the entrepreneur thinks, oh my God, I'm going to get X amount of dollars. They're giving me this money. They're not giving it to you. At that point in time, you're just an employee of the company. So that's one of the things, one of the important strategic elements that we work with now and in the course and in our incubator to be able to ramp you up to a point where you're attractive and you have some leverage, whatever that leverage point might be. If it's, you know, if you're running a landscape service, then obviously you don't have technology and well, maybe you do, but if you don't have technology and AI,
Which you should
maybe there's
implement.
another leverage point. Maybe you've secured, you know, the town, the city of Miami. You have all of Miami as your customer. That's a leverage point. We springboard off of that, right? So creating those leverage points for capital gives you that somewhat the strength to be able to go to capital and not have to give the ship away. And and that comes with experience, because you know,
This
creating a value